What's going on, guys? Mike here, back in the aquarium lab. Today we're going to be talking about, wait a minute, what happened to the 90? Sorry for that super corny intro, I couldn't really help myself. But today what we're going to be doing is starting the deconstruction of the 90-gallon tank. I've really enjoyed this tank for like the last 6 months that it's been set up. Until about like a month ago, where I started to notice things were starting to go downhill a little bit, and that was completely my fault. So with that happening, with plant growth starting to slow down, I decided that it was probably time to make some changes. I thought about, completely redoing the tank and just putting, new fish in it. I also thought about leaving what fish are in there and just totally doing a rescape, but then a light bulb clicked, and I decided that it's time to make this a species-specific aquarium. I don't want to give too much away, but as we go through this little series, I don't know if it's going to be like 2 videos or maybe 3 videos, I haven't decided yet. As we go through it, you're going to get a bunch of little clues and hints as to what's going to be going in this tank. So as you kind of, are able to maybe get a glimpse of what you think this tank might be housing, make sure to let me know in the comments below. I also want to say that it might be a fish that I already have. It also might just be a totally new group of fish that I haven't ever had before. So that should keep you guys on your toes and keep you interested in what's going on. So we're gonna go ahead and get started now. The first thing that you wanna do when you're taking down a tank is make sure that everything's turned off. That's pretty obvious. The filter, the heater, all your pumps, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now, and then we're gonna talk about what sort of the next steps are that I like to do. Before we come in and start pulling up plants that are down in the substrate and moving rocks and getting everything super turbid, we want to get the fish out. And to make it easier to do that, we're gonna take some of the stuff that's back here in the background out. These big plants like the Java ferns, with those out of the tank, it's gonna be a lot easier to catch these fish. Hopefully it won't take as long. I'm also super lucky because the big Java ferns aren't strongly attached to anything. Their rhizomes and their roots are attached to the rocks that they're nearby, but they should be really easy to lift up out of the tank. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna pull those big pieces out. You'll see them here in a second. And what I'm gonna do is put them over here in this 55-gallon aquarium that's just my plant holding tank. So that way I don't have to mess with, putting them in the tub down here, which is where we're eventually gonna put our substrate. I can just take them over and put them in a tank that has a light, and we could even leave them in there for, more than a few days and be just fine. Look at the size of some of these Java ferns, guys. That is just awesome. I love it. So we got those out of the tank without muddying up the water too much. I still have to get these crypts out. The retrospiralis are dug in really deep. I'm not gonna be able to get them out before we start working on the fish. So what I'm gonna do is get in there with my net and start to take out the fish. What I'm gonna do for that, rather than put them in, a tub of water for a few days, I'm gonna take out the fish and put them directly into either my 72 bow front or the 125. Luckily, the environment in the 125 and the 72 is very close to what it is here in the 90s. So the fish shouldn't really go through much shock or anything other than just being caught up in the net and put into a new tank. My plan is to take the tetras, the bleeding hearts, and the prostillas, put them over in the 72, and then put everybody else in the 125. Well, about a half an hour later of trying to catch fish, and I have most everybody out of here except for a few. The scissor-tail rasboras especially are super fast. Trying to work in here around the retrospiralis is just, I'm at the end of my patience. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to pull, you know, most of those out to try and make it easier to catch the remaining fish, and I might even drain the water a little bit. When I pull these out though, I'm gonna be super slow and really try to not bring up soil into the tank, because that's just gonna make it impossible to see these fish. Check this out, guys. So remember, when we set up this tank, I put in the nylon bags that were filled with lava rock to help give, you know, some height to the substrate without having to use a ton of soil or a ton of that sand. Well, check it out, because all of the plants, the foreground, you know, S. repens, that's totally rooted into the inside of the bag, and I bet even onto the lava rocks. And then check out the retrospiralis, man. Those roots are totally going into the bag. Look at that. That's crazy. And just look at how many plants we have. I can't even remember how many we started out with, but it was only like, you know, 4 or 5 of them total. And we just, oh man, we have all of these plants. They are really on that bag. Look at that. That's nuts. So I'm excited to, you know, just have this. I don't know where I'm gonna put them, to be honest with you, but, you know, I'm lucky that I have that 55-gallon tank that we can put all these plants in. Now we're left with a super muddy tank. You know, can't really see anything. I'm gonna go check for some more fish and then just continue to pull out these plants, separate them out. The S. repens, I'll probably go through and, you know, cut off where some of the really good stems are for replanting over in the 125 and probably back into the 72 as well. But I'm gonna keep working on that, and then I'll come back to you guys. Now comes the real fun part, guys. We gotta scoop out the substrate. Now, this part is actually probably gonna take even longer than getting the fish out, and here's why. I'm gonna save the sand that I have in here. So, you know, if I didn't wanna save any of the substrate, it would be as simple as just taking it out, you know, putting it in my big tub here, and then going and putting it in like a corner of the yard or whatever. But again, I want to save this sand because, you know, it cost me like 60 bucks, I think, for this Monterey Beach sand. I really like it and I want to use it again. So I'm going to go and I'm going to try and do my best to scoop, you know, just the sand layer off. You can see everything's pretty mixed together. It's going to be tough. There's going to end up being a ton of soil in here. So once I do that, I'm going to take it out and then I'm just going to wash it really good with the hose. Try and kick up as much soil from the sand as possible, pour it out, and just repeat that multiple times until we get the sand as clean as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I probably won't show you that entire process just because I think you get the point. This is one stinky pile of sand and soil, guys. I mean, most of this soil has been, you know, pretty anaerobic for a long time. There's a really strong smell of rotten eggs, all that sulfur down in there. But that's gonna be really good. Once I get this all washed out, the sand is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be able to reuse it in a bunch of new tanks. And I got a pretty good amount of it out of there. Like, you can see there's not much left in there. You can't get everything, obviously, but I just did my best and I'm happy with the outcome. So this just gets washed and washed and washed and poured out over and over again until it's really clean. Again, I won't bore you with all that. But, you know, pretty much that is my teardown routine. All I'm gonna do, once I free up this bin, get the nice clean sand out, I'm gonna take out the rest of this stuff and just chuck it in the corner of the yard. Take the tank out, wash it out really good, get a sponge, get some vinegar, a little vinegar solution, wipe everything down, get all the hard water spots off the tank. Any algae that's still on there, might have to use a razor blade. But that's pretty much it. It took about 4 hours to get to this point, guys. I still have work to do. I still have to take the tank outside, clean it up, get everything situated back here. So thank you for hanging in there and watching this video. Maybe you learned something new. You know, tearing down a tank can be kind of a nightmare, especially if your aquarium is like in your living room. You know, and that's, you know, especially the case if you have soil in your tank. There's a few extra steps that you have to do, but I'm lucky enough that I'm out here in the lab with a cement floor, so it doesn't really matter. As a reward for staying to the end of this kind of boring video, I'll give you your first hint on what organism is gonna be showcased in this aquarium. This tank won't have water all the way up to the top. So I know that's a little vague, but you can kind of start to do a little bit of research and see what kind of an organism wouldn't necessarily need a full tank. And this means I'm gonna have a lot of different options when it comes to the aquascape. Stuff coming up out of the water, stuff resting maybe on the top corner of the tank and coming down into the aquarium, maybe some driftwood, who knows? So that's your little hint. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it so much. I'm all dirty. I gotta go get cleaned up. The planted shirt definitely got used today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Leave this video a like if you're excited to see what I'm gonna be putting in this tank. And as always, we'll see you next time.